Hello and welcome everybody to the Flying Circus, where this time we're gonna take a look at this year's E3. And I know I'm a little bit late to the party, but you know what they say, better late than never. And as a starting point, we're gonna go right at the beginning with EA Play, which this year went all slim version, ditching everything from the big presentation on the big stage in favor of a smaller stage with a smaller crowd and a really thin lineup. A lineup in which we have seen one or two indie games being announced, a couple of updates coming to Sims 4, a game that actually concluded the show. They also announced a couple of new maps coming to Battlefield 5 and a brand new season from Apex Legends coming up packed with a brand new character named Watson. So, following this thread, we can see that this year's E3 was a little bit different for EA because they banked a lot on already launched titles, not bringing newcomers to the table, and all that they showed with what they had was, well, kind of lackluster. More than the presentation of already existing IPs, they brought to the table FIFA 20 and Madden NFL 20, which are also already existing IP, but they're based on sports franchises, so they get a brand new game every single year. And with that idea in mind, it's pretty clear that these two games could not have missed this show because, well, they bring a lot of money into the company. But the problem is, even with these two games, the presentation was kind of boring because it was all toned down to boring dialogue. All they got to show about these two games was nothing more than announcement trailers, after which they talked about brand new in game mechanics, which is not exactly the perfect way to hype everybody up. But other than that, all the eyes were actually pointed at the Kickstarter of the whole show, being, of course, Star Wars Jedi The Fallen Order. But even here, there is a little bit of a problem because everything about it felt a little bit disappointing. I mean, don't get me wrong, it is absolutely great the fact that we're getting a Star Wars game that is focusing a lot on story and not much else, but there's a little bit of a problem because it feels like it's a new Force Unleashed game with some updated graphics. And honestly, I really do hope that this game is much more than this. Moving on, we land right at Microsoft Xbox presentation. We saw a brand new trailer for Borderlands 3, Psychonauts 2 being announced, a brand new LEGO expansion for Forza Horizon 4, which is already out by this point, a new game from Ninja Theory that joined the Xbox lineup, and this game is called Bleeding Edge. It's pretty much very similar to Overwatch, but is focused a lot on melee action combat. Other than that, a couple of montages were shown having a total lineup of 60 games. Not really the best way to showcase games, but anyway, this is indeed a very good way to give some exposure for a lot of indie games that otherwise would not get a chance like this. Plus, more than that, the fans of the Gears franchise can rejoice because number 5 in the series is going to be out soon, as well as another classic Xbox franchise, and I'm talking here about Halo that launches Halo Infinite, a brand new game in that specific series that will be out holiday season in 2020, right in time to be packed with the brand new console from Xbox, that is of course Project Scarlet. Now, with that in mind, Xbox has a bit of an advantage in this battle, announcing the console to the world, but there is still a lot of waiting to be done until that console ships out. At least, we know what to expect next year. And we are going to finish this bit of the video with probably the most breathtaking moment of the entire presentation and probably of the whole E3, and that is of course the announcement that Keanu Reeves is going to be in Cyberpunk 2077, which looks to be one of the greatest classics in the history of video games. And the simple fact that Keanu took the stage with so much enthusiasm, it was, well, indeed breathtaking. Next on this list of E3 stage shows was Bethesda, with an absolute abysmal presentation. For a just quick second right here, I must be honest that I'm really curious to see how a couple of games will look like. Games like Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo. But that is the problem because it's a real shame what they've done with these games. They were all presented as announcement trailers, and those trailers were all CGI. So we basically have absolutely no clue what those things really are. As a bit of a good news, actually, the only thing that saved a bit all the atmosphere inside that specific moment was the demo for Doom Eternal actually being presented on stage, but even so, it could not save the entire bad vibe of the presentation. And the reason for why such a bad vibe existed in the first place was because Bethesda chose to talk about Rage 2 a lot, a game that is already out, chose to talk about Fallout 76 a lot, a game that is also already out, and not to mention is basically utter shit. Just trying desperately to get rid of some of the shame and milk some more money out of this. And other than that, they went all out on mobile games. Yes, mobile games. Listen, I know very well that mobile is a market indeed, but think about it. E3 is just not the place for that. And with all those things in mind, when you think about Bethesda being at E3 with all that presentation, in the end, you can say nothing more other than the fact that, well, the whole show was much bark, no bite. Taking another step, we get this time to Ubisoft, and they started their own show and their own presentation with a little moment where the Assassin's Creed Symphony took stage, which was a moment that I kinda like, and then they jumped right into action with a very nice presentation and reveal of Watch Dogs Legion, a brand new game that just might revitalize the entire franchise. But other than that, there are not many interesting things to say because this show actually looked a lot like EA Play, basically starting strong and toning it down a bit on the way to the finish. And more than that, as the trend was at this year's E3, they talked and showed games that are already out like Tom Clancy lineup with Rainbow Six Siege, Ghost Recon Breakpoint where John Bramfell and his buddy Bam Bam the dog showed up, which was really great, but that was pretty much it. A TV show was presented on the stage which felt a little bit odd, and of course the classic Just Dance moment. Now, other than that, they ended up the entire presentation announcing a brand new service, which is probably the greatest thing that every single gamer out there in the world actually wants. And just to finish up the things, Nintendo looked really good this year. The highlight of what they had to show was a brand new Zelda game coming out, and of course Square Enix got a bit of a, let's say, oomph getting their hands on the Avengers right for video games, but unfortunately what they had to show left people wanting something a little bit more, so in general speaking, their presentation was unfortunately a bust. So that was E3 for you in a nutshell this year. A lot of disappointment, very few moments that were really good, and basically in general, it was a lackluster conference altogether. And with that being said, it's Flynn here, over and out.